Welcome back to Full Court Press, Fast Break News, the show to bring you amazing content all MLQ season long. My name is Whitney Ho.
And my name is Nick Love, and week after week, we're going to get right into the action. This week is a hot topic. It was two great series that just happened this past week. Washington was able to play Boston, and then Chicago was able to play Minneapolis for real this time. But to start with the series recap of Washington versus Boston, we want to give you a disclaimer. This isn't going to be pretty by any means, and we're going to get straight into it. Whitney, what do we have?
We have a lot to talk about. Honestly, I just want to start off by saying we said last week, let the kids play, let UVA get some minutes in. I want to see what they can do. We were both huge advocates of that, and I feel like we didn't see that as much as they needed. Washington really needed those UVA kids. Starting off point blank, fast break news stats. We've got Nathan and Zan had an amazing weekend. Only a very few amount of drives, and honestly, I thought that both of them had an amazing weekend compared to the rest of the Washington Chasers. And the fact that they weren't getting as many minutes, what are we doing? Like Washington, what are we doing? Those two kids just balled out for you guys, and their minutes are getting reduced, and we saw that in Washington's 3-0 loss. So, how are you feeling, Nick?
Um, I'm disappointed from a lot of different perspectives, particularly for Washington this week. Boston, we're getting into you in a second. You all had a great series. But just
Yes,
wanted to
yes.
stick for Washington for a minute, particularly because, a lot of you all were upset about the rankings, particularly against you in Boston. And, the continuity that you have between DCQC and the actual Admiral season, UVA having a strong program. I was just disappointed in a lot of ways. We're going to pull up some stats in a second. Washington's beaters had average dodgeballs across the board for every single beater higher than Boston did. You had control almost the entire game. We didn't use that control the entire game to get goals. We were relying so much heavily on hero balling, and we're going to pull up clips throughout this entire thing. We're going to edit this out. You're not going to even see my face. You're just going to see clips of Washington folding time and time again, both in the beater game and in the chaser game. Like we can pull up stats here, particularly looking at Washington. You think about their top players that come to mind when you think of DCQC, of Brian Mulcahy, Shane McConaughey, John Gaffigan. All of them had 7 turnovers each. That's 21 turnovers through 3 games. Like that's unacceptable from your star players, your captains, your coaches of your team. Like we need more. We need people to hold each other accountable, and a lot of that comes from not passing to open players and hero balling and making poor decisions. Like if you decide that Washington is the number 5 team in MLQ, we can't allow that to happen. We have to start practicing our long range beats. And I'm not trying to pick here on Colin, but watching throughout the weekend, there were so many opportunities where Colin had an easy tap out, made a long range beat, missed a short range beat, where then Boston was able to score. Like these things can't be happening for us to say that we're a top team in MLQ and that we're one of the best teams, we're competing for championships when there's just this lack of cohesion. And then this is my last point, and then Whitney, I'll let you take it over for the rest of Washington. But I've never seen in my 4 years of quad ball the decision to pull 2 armed beaters off of Frop in a catch wins it all game to allow the other team to catch. Like I've never seen this, and I understand players get tired, but there are opportunities when we can sub on Frop and opportunities that we can't. And making the decision to sub Adrian and Colin off at this particular point in the game is unacceptable. There has to be some sort of like we're gonna get a dodgeball back home. Somebody has to stay in the play to throw because you allowed a 50-50 to happen where they caught and they won the game, and you're looking around like what just happened. Like that's unacceptable, and that's not going to win championships. And again, I'm a high believer in Washington. I believe you all are a good team when you can put the pieces together, but you got outclassed this weekend. And I think it particularly came on Boston's ability to actually capitalize on opportunities that were presented to them because they didn't take them. They were presented to them because you didn't take your opportunities yourself. So I'm done. I'm done. I'm just disappointed.
No, that was like we were chatting in the Fast Break News group chat about this series in particular, like a lot. And I think it was just we were all so shocked. Like you saw me and Nick at the beginning last week, both of us, we had Washington, Nick had Washington sweeping the series. I had Washington winning 2-1. We had faith in Washington after that performance against New York. Obviously, New York came out and was really firing on all cylinders, and but Washington kept it close, especially in game one. And we were really optimistic going into Boston, especially a Max and Lulu Boston where Washington was going to have very experienced beaters ready to go, already a series under their belt. They know what like the things that they needed to fix based on the New York game, and I just feel like they didn't improve from that New York series at all. If anything, it was regression, and it's really, really sad to say that and see that happening. But and I don't want to keep talking about UVA, but genuinely, we've been having a conversation all MQ season about the DCQC and UVA lines and how at sometimes they're kept separate. And when we notice those UVA kids go on, it's an immediate energy shift. It's an immediate tone change. And that's something that Washington needed. They needed that this weekend, especially against people like Boston who were, at a disadvantage in the beater game. They needed players like Nathan and Zan to come out and do big things, and they delivered. But still, like Washington just couldn't put it together, even with those aspects, and not being able to see those younger players shine and changes being made throughout the series, especially when, they're keeping it pretty close in the first two, but can't seem to execute the finish, and then they continue to just not execute those things and end up with a 3-0 loss. It's just really disappointing. But I don't know. I've tried to defend Washington all series, and we are being pretty harsh right now, but like I think this is a really, really great wake-up call for them. You guys have got to like go back. You've got a month and a half until conference, like get it together, iron out those kinks, maybe just even take a reset so you can come out in champs and get your guys' lick back because we think you guys are better than this, like genuinely. But we do want to transition back to Boston because all the things that we've been saying about Washington does not take away from Boston's performance. Genuinely, like I was so pleasantly surprised by the way that Boston came out this weekend and got those 3 wins. It was amazing. So, Nick, how are you feeling about Boston?
I think really, I think it came down to their beater game. We'll pull it again up here on stats just to show you all. But they actually spread their beater depth out a lot more than Washington did, and I think it allowed for them to get different looks and opportunities for all of their players across, the entire series. And I think it allowed for a lot more like continuity and lows in play. For like Washington to, be running their top line for a longer period of time where Boston was cycling people out and getting good reps in and getting, people feeling good within the moment to keep the game close in a lot of ways. And I think that's where Boston really thrived throughout the entire weekend. I think Ufuk had a great series, particularly in getting stops. Tom DeMuth had a great series. On the chaser side, Senna, coming back from injury and being their first MLQ season back, played very well. Ryan Leary did, Tommy Flathers. Like, I think there were so many great like moments throughout the entire series for Boston where they're a legit team, regardless of all the things that media might be saying or people think about Boston with them losing, some of the staple names and of their actual program. Like, they came and showed that they're still the same Boston and that they had particularly a lot of success in during this USQ season. And so I thought it was a great series. I'm excited to see their series against New York because Washington played them very close at a lot of different moments. Just how Boston just played Washington. Boston might be after this series to be able to refine and tune some things up, decide like these are the lines that we want to go with. Where I think Boston could take some games off New York. Like that's a possibility because of what I've seen this weekend. And so I'm excited to see what the actual season continues to provide for Boston. But I think if anything that this weekend showed is that they're deserving of their ranking.
Definitely, definitely. Boston, I was unfamiliar. Okay, I was unfamiliar with your game, and I want to apologize. All right, like we're getting that off the chest right now. You guys did amazing, and something that I really want to focus on was the fact, and we'll talk about this with Chicago too, because Chicago also did do this, but Boston had 3 different seekers catch in all 3 games, and honestly, that was just so awesome to see. It was so great to see 3 different seekers, especially like a younger seeker in Matan, and then also Jade Gray getting that pull in the third. That was a huge moment for them. We'll talk about Will too. But that was an amazing, amazing show of trust in their depth. And yeah, like Nick was saying, Boston really, really ran through their depth. And we did shout out a few players. I definitely want to keep focusing on the beater play. Tom DeMuth had a great series, but AT did as well. And Cleo Brooks also was a really, really huge presence on Boston. Fiona Weishart. It's just awesome to see those younger players really getting out, getting minutes, having a team full of seniors who are putting trust in them to get the job done. And that really, really paid off for them. And I'm really excited to see Boston is going to move forward with this. Like this was a much better start than I feel like anybody had anticipated for them. And New York, they looked real good at the beginning, so New York's at the top for a reason. But Boston's a threat, and I'm excited to see how they shape up not only against New York, but also throughout the rest of the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, 100%. But MVPs of the series, I
Mhm.
think we were talking about this right before we started recording, that we made a little bit of history here. Wouldn't you want to tell them what that history is?
The history is we have, for 2 weeks in a row, the second ever full court press unanimous MVP. And Nick and I have decided that our second unanimous MVP will be Will Richardson. Will, amazing, amazing performance. 6 goals, a stop, and a catch. Really, a threat on multiple positions. Just a huge presence out there for Boston whenever they went in. So bravo, truly, truly deserved.
Yeah, like I think people really need to start taking a look at like the importance of having a great seeker and catching in big moments. Like that's Will. I think you saw that a lot during this past USQ season. Like if you gave Will a look, gave Will a minute and a half, Will is pulling. And that 35 points is a huge swing depending on how close the game is. Just incredible, and so happy, to see Will continuously hooping throughout this entire, the first series of the year, and I'm excited to continue to see Will continue to progress. It's just like what an incredible catch. I like 50-50s. You got it. You won your team the game. That's what it was. It was great to see and watch on camera. So, congrats to you, Will.
Yeah, genuinely, game two, that moment, I believe they were tied 90-90, and it had been back and forth the whole game. It was important. This could have been Boston's chance to, win the series. And, they put Will in, he's getting looks. He put up, okay, mind you, he put up 3 goals in the chaser game on not back-to-back drives, but in a row for Boston. And he goes out there, catches it to win the game. That's what I want to see. That's the quad ball that I want to see. So amazing, amazing, amazing. But I also had a few nominees for the MVP that I also wanted to recognize. We talked about Tom DeMuth a little earlier. They had 5 stops and a +4, so very, very big for Boston. A veteran beater just going out and showing it how it's done. Getting those rotations in, great performance. And then I also did want to shout out again Nathan John from Washington. Amazing, amazing series for Nathan. And I believe he had 5 goals, 4 assists, and 2 stops over the series. And it was, in not as many minutes as I'm sure we were all expecting for Nathan, but ultimately had a great series for Washington. Definitely a highlight when we were watching Washington. Very excited to see what they do next. But moving on to Chicago versus Minneapolis. Chicago pulled out the win 3-0, as I'm sure a lot of people were expecting, but not a lot of people were expecting the drastic, drastic score lines. So, Nick, how are we feeling about this performance?
I'm not surprised by any means at the score line. Chicago's always been an extremely dominant team, even with the drops that many was they had with a lot of people moving to KC this year. But Chicago's an incredible squad, right? One of the things that we said in our last episode was like we need Chicago to come out and prove, your ranking, and I think they did, if not more so. I think their wins were a lot more convincing than New York's win over Washington and KC's win over Houston, in which maybe the voters might be looking at that a little bit differently. We'll have to see when our fast break news rankings, midseason rankings come out. But I thought, for the cards that Minnie was dealt, I think they played well at a lot of different moments within these games. There were obviously some times where, you're not getting dodgeballs home. You don't even have a dodgeball on defense. If you look at the average dodgeballs, a lot of Minneapolis's beaters didn't even have a one. They didn't have dodgeballs in place. But I think when they did have dodgeballs home, they were able to get some decent stops in creating and forcing turnovers. Max Meyer in the beater game, interesting. I was a little bit nervous, and I mentioned in the last episode too, when looking at the practice series against Chicago the first time, I was like, I don't know. Max was kind of getting cooked out there, but I think Max definitely held their own a lot better. This one, they led the team in stops with six. They had an average dodgeball of above a one. They only had a -3 on the weekend. So I think Max played a lot better this weekend, and so maybe that's a run that you see a little bit more. But I also will say you're missing a lot of quad ball action across the board when the other team is focused on Max as a chaser. I think it was in game three, Max had 3 goals in a row. Like you're missing that action as a chaser, in which other players, if Max is going to beat, they need to step up and fill that void because a lot of pressure was on Joe. I remember specifically, I think it was in game one. I heard Nathan Digman on the sideline screaming like Joe was the only person that can score. We need other players to feel confident in their abilities and to step up and say, no, I can score too, taking those one-on-one matchups and shutting up the old heads on the sideline. Like that's what I'm charging many to do. Especially when we get into Central Conference Championship, there are going to be a lot of opportunities when you're playing Houston, a lot of opportunities when you'll get to play Toronto this time, hopefully again, and maybe the bracket or however they decide to do that against KC. Like you're going to have these opportunities. Like I'm empowering people to decide, like, we want to win these one-on-ones. We want to win these matchups. I'm a threat to score. However, other people decide to label me, that's not true. And so I'm excited to continue to see many, even though this weekend wasn't pretty on paper. I think there were a lot of great moments though as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Chicago, that's exactly what I needed from Chicago. Like genuinely, I think last week I was like, "Oh yeah, like Chicago, I don't know, like they did good, but let's see them." And they brought the big dogs out. They brought them out. And that is that Chicago looks scary. And I don't know how, they're going to continue to approach like Toronto. That's going to be very interesting. But I think Chicago is in a great spot moving forward. And honestly, there's not really much else to say. Like they were just doing everything. They fired on all cylinders. They executed in every aspect, and that showed. It showed in the score line. It showed in all of the different players who were putting up numbers. A lot of the different rookies who were having great weekends because they were, getting that playing time. They're, riding the momentum. So honestly, 10 out of 10 for Chicago. I have pretty much no notes on Chicago just because it was just a great weekend. I'm definitely agreeing with you with what you said about Minnie though. I think Minnie is in a really tough spot because they have so many young players. They have a bunch of players who honestly this is their first time getting like real MOQ minutes, and players from smaller college teams like Minnesota, Wisconsin, and programs that are trying to reignite. And this is definitely going to be a learning experience for them. But I do think that they have what it takes. Like they have the vibe. I think the vibe is good over there. And it may look tough for them after this series when, their only opponent was Chicago. But I think that if they get a chance to play some, I don't want to say like lower ranked opponents, but teams that are more around their level, like Houston, like, I don't know, maybe Detroit, we'll see. But I want to see how well they do against them and see if they can, capitalize, see what, the big gaping holes in their performance was, and just, patch them up and keep their heads up and move on. So, moving to MVPs of this series, who do you have, Nick?
I have to go to the winning side for this one. I think they had an absolutely incredible series. Looking at the stat line before I say the player, 7 goals, 10 assists, 4 stops, 2 turnovers. That's a 17-2 ratio. Incredible stat line for a 3 game series. Like I would say currently after one, well, we still have to see, San Antonio, as well as Cleveland. But I think from a statistics standpoint, like they're up there for the front runner for MVPs, up there with Leo currently. I'm gonna have to go with Liam Zock the third, as my MVP for the Chicago miniseries.
Yeah, great, great performance. That was just like genuinely like lights out performance from Liam. I had Liam in my list of nominees as well. That was just when you're looking at dominance as a player and looking at, being an asset on multiple front line, like you don't want just a goal scorer. You want somebody who can do it all. And that genuinely was exactly what Chicago needed. They needed somebody to step up because Nathan Digman wasn't playing as well. And, Liam throughout this past season with Boom Train and really came out first series ever. Super excited to see for him throughout the rest of the season against Toronto and in Central Conference Champs. My MVP is going to echo the MLQ Player of the Week. I'm gonna go with Matt Brown. Genuinely had an amazing, amazing weekend. And I don't have a clip for Matt Brown, but that's just because he was so dominant throughout so many different moments. Him and Camilla, especially. I want to shout out Camilla as well. Camilla had an amazing, amazing weekend. Great stat lines, a lot of fantasy points, might I add. And Matt and Camilla, it was just a beautiful beater pair to watch and definitely something that a lot of the other beaters in the league should be taking note of and should be watching a lot of film on because they're going to be a really, really big threat later on in the season.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. But heading on to our next segment of the show, Cleveland versus Charlotte happening in Charlotte for the North Carolina home series. How are we feeling about this series? Charlotte was just able to play 2 weeks ago against Detroit. This is the first time we're seeing Cleveland. What are some things to keep in mind for it?
Well, I think the most important thing to mention is that if Charlotte wins this series, they will officially be crowned the inaugural Gateway Division champions. And honestly, it's looking good. I think that they deserve the crown. Like, I don't want to count Cleveland out too early, but this Charlotte team, they looked great against Detroit. And, Cleveland is a little bit of a weaker opponent. I think that they're in a really great spot to, win the division and head into Central Conference or Eastern Conference in like a really, really great spot. Cleveland, this is going to be the first time we're seeing Cleveland. Their roster, I don't know if everyone has gotten a chance to look at their roster. Their roster does look a little bit weaker than Charlotte's. So it's definitely going to be something to see how they, match up against Charlotte. Who are they playing against certain people? How are they focusing on Frop? How are they going to combat Austin Cruz and his dominance in the seeking game? It's definitely going to be very eye-opening to see how Cleveland can perform, and then definitely going to see how we're going to gauge them against Detroit later on in the season.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think Charlotte's definitely going to be a lot more aggressive throughout the entire series, and showing pressure in a lot of different ways that I think Cleveland for their first series is gonna be a little bit tough. But I am still excited to see how Cleveland continues to grow. I think they took huge strides and leaps last year. Being able to play them throughout my years in Detroit, like the Cleveland that you saw last year was not the same Cleveland that you saw in my first MLQ year, right? So I'm excited to see how they continue to develop this season. They're picking up some more Case Western players. Titus is playing this year for MLQ as an MLQ rookie, and I think one of the biggest things for Cleveland was being able to find a primary threat and a scorer outside of Joe. I don't know if they're going to run them on the same line or maybe running them on opposite lines, but I'm excited to see how they implement that together, and that's something that I'm definitely going to be watching as both a player on Detroit as well as just a fan of quad balls to see what that looks like. But I think it'll still be a good series. Predictions though, I'm gonna still go Charlotte sweeping. Congratulations on your championship for the Gateway Division. I think they'll be the first people to actually get that crown. So it looks good. It looks good. Congratulations, Charlie. Definitely put it together, and I'm excited to hopefully face you all again in Central Conference or Eastern Conference. My fault.
Definitely. I'm going to echo that. I also think Charlotte's going to get the sweep out, but I don't know. I'm excited to see Cleveland. I'm excited to see Titus, especially. I think Titus was huge for Case Western, especially in an up and coming program. That's difficult. That's so hard to do to start a college program. Like I was head of recruitment for Texas State this past year. I know how hard it is. Like everybody knows how hard it is. So I'm really excited to see Titus get some big minutes. I think that it's a great matchup for him against Charlotte to, really get in his first season. But yep, hopefully Charlotte will, pull out the win and head into a great spot to go to Ohio for the Eastern Conference Championships. And that will set them up for a great spot in August for the Beneby Cup. So, moving on to Houston versus San Antonio. The San Antonio Soldados will start their title defense this weekend, ranked number 4 versus the number 8 Houston Legends. Houston is down 0-3 versus Kansas City, but our consensus after watching that series a couple episodes ago was that the Houston performance was actually pretty solid. So, how are we feeling about this upcoming series, Nick?
I feel good, right? San Antonio is traveling to Houston. So there's a little bit of travel there, although it's still Texas. Texas is a pretty big state. So it's a little bit of a drive, a little bit of drive over. But I think Houston is a little bit hungry from their games against KC. I think they were able to pull it together in a lot of ways, and they were lacking in some ways, in which, hopefully they'll be able to string that a little bit more together in a cohesive decision making for this next series. I hope. I put emphasis on I hope. I would love to see Houston play in that half court space with San Antonio, because I think if they're going to let it be a fast break type of ordeal for 10 minutes out of the 20 minutes before prop, like Houston, you're going to lose. I just don't think that's your game right now. And I don't think you have the cohesiveness between beaters and chasers to play that. That's just my opinion. You can disagree, you can agree, however you feel. That's just how I feel. That being said, I think if you were able to slow it down in a half court, I think there are chances where we can get away with potentially pulling off a game here. You might have to catch a flag though. I don't know what's going on with the seeker game down in Houston. Houston, we might have a problem for that. We might have a problem for that. But I don't know. Whitney, how are you feeling about it?
Well, okay. I should start this off by saying you guys all know that like all of my close personal friends play on the San Antonio Soldados. Okay, so obviously I'm not going to talk shit about them on my show, but I do think going San Antonio going to Houston, this is a great opportunity for San Antonio, and I think that San Antonio, while they have lost big players like Jay, Daniel, Lewis, I could go on a bunch of them. Let's just say that. But I still think San Antonio has the roots to get it done. Like they still have Baldy, they still have Chris De La Fuente, they still have David, Izzy, Hayden, all three, Nate Targonski. They have so many weapons that they can use to, continue their dominance. This isn't something that they have to do a full rebuild. This is just, it looks a little different. And I think still having Chris and Baldy is going to be huge. I think where Houston lacks the most is going to be in the beater game. And I feel like I've been saying that for a while now. And it's not like I'm not, shitting on all your beaters, but I'm just saying Baldy and Chris have the experience. They have played in an MLQ final. They know how to win. Baldy had an amazing series against Houston last year. And that was in his, like I'm transferring from Houston to San Antonio, so he's going back. But I think that's going to be the difference maker for San Antonio. I think that if the Houston beaters can really come out and, play how they did against Kansas City in like game 2 and game 3 more so, they will have a much better chance at, taking the series perhaps. But ultimately, besides that, I am really excited for Andrew to come out. I want to see how Riley and Andrew work together. I want to see if they're going to be on the same line. I want to see if they're going to be on different lines. That's going to be a scary combo and something I'm very much looking forward to. But I mean, it's David Avila, it's Izzy Ramirez, it's Hayden Boyce. Like, what can you do? Like, you got those three right there. Alyssa Villalba, like, so many stars. This is going to be a great series. Honestly, prediction wise, I'm going to give it to the Soldados 2-1. But we'll see. We'll see if, the Soldados can pull off the sweep. That would be amazing. Or if Houston can take more than one game off and pull out the win. We'll see what happens this Saturday, but it's definitely going to be a must watch.
Yeah. I think for me, if I saw Houston catch some flags or be a little bit more aggressive in that flag pulling game, I might think like, oh, we can give you a game. I can give you a game. I need some effort in the flag running game. Because especially I don't know who's gonna be flag running for San Antonio, but they still have people on their roster where I feel like they can get it done. I haven't seen that out of you, Houston. So like I wanna see some more effort in trying to pull some flags because if you can do that, you can win games. And so I'm gonna have Soldados, the daddies of the South, getting a
Yes.
3-0 sweep. And I also think like you all should be playing with a chip on your shoulder. You just won a title last year. You lost some people, yeah, is what it is. But coming in preseason ranked number 4, like you should embarrass Houston in a bigger fashion than KC did to show we're better than them before we play them. That's just how I would feel.
Yep.
But
Let's run it back. Let's actually run it back. Run it back. But yeah, I mean, going off of the final thoughts. But going off of what Nick said about the Seeker game is something that we didn't mention on our last episode after the Kansas City and Houston series is that Houston has been putting two rookie Seekers in, like not even like MOQ rookies too, rookies to the sport. And I'm not trying to take away from their performance because I know both of them personally and I like both of them personally. However, I just want to like know what the thought process is behind this. You know, I think they need some guidance. I want to see, you know, someone come out and show them the ropes and allow them to continue to be a threat. And, you know, I think that they can be, but when you're putting in two rookie seekers in MLQ against #1 ranked Kansas City, it's like, it just gives the vibes as you're giving up on the snitch entirely and you're relying on the chaser game. And if they continue to do that, like Nick said, I just, you know, Houston's gonna struggle to be competitive. But moving on. Do you have any hot takes for week 4?
um I think we'll talk about this too a little bit later. Hot takes. I think Kylian Mbappe only shows up for the World Cup and nothing else. Like I'm kind of confused on this. Like, of course, congratulations, Messi was able to, we're #1 in World Cup goal scorer. Mbappe is right behind, and
The
this is
streak
his third World Cup. Like he's about to eclipse that with ease in the next one. But even with that happening, like I don't hear anything during the regular year about him continuing going crazy, winning all these championships. But World Cup time, oh, hat trick every game. Where is this at during the year? I don't know. I don't know. I don't watch
I'm
soccer that closely, but I'm just saying from a average, not even ball knower of the World Cup, like that's just crazy to me. But that's my hot take. Hot take.
I will say I could talk about the politics at Real Madrid for hours, like literally hours. But I will say the dictator Mbappe memes, hilarious. I love them. I love being on Instagram Reels during the World Cup. Definitely 10 out of 10 entertainment. Um, you know, I gotta say Messi's still a goat, you know, 5 goals in 2 games. That's insane. That's actually insane. And you know, Ronaldo though. He heard what everyone was saying, and
Yeah,
hey, he's back. He got that brace. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see
we'll
how he
see.
continues to move forward.
We'll see.
So moving on to fantasy. How did you do this week, Nick? I
We
hear you
cracked
have
the
some
top 10.
good. Yeah.
Thank you. We'll add a sound effect clap right there. Like, so happy. Add a little golf clap. Happy to crack the top 10 this week. Something I've been wanting for a while. I'm just happy to be here and to be a part of the process, really. I think, really, see if I'm looking back at my lines, I was like, having Noyes as a wild card, like, that was huge for a lot of people. And so I think that's kind of where I wish, like, dang, I wish I put Noyes there. But it's all good. We cracked the top 10. We learn from our misjudgments of players, and so we're just excited to because we're in another week and we get to get back. But how'd you do, Wendy?
I did okay. I improved from last week. I'm 17 now instead of 22. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think I did good. I wish I could have cracked the top 10, but I just think the numbers weren't there for some people, and that's okay, that's okay. The first place lineup had 808 points, so actually a significant downtrend from last week. So, keep those numbers in mind. But their lineup consisted of Andrews, Mulcahy, Peachy, Murphy, Brown, Koretsky, Richardson, and then Noyes in the wild card. That was the big ticket item for a lot of people. But moving on to week 4, I'm going to start off my fantasy lineup. I had to do it, give me David Avila, give me Izzy Ramirez. Those two are instant locks on my fantasy lineup pretty much anytime San Antonio is playing. I'm not going to explain myself. That's just the way it's going to be. But I also decided to do Andrew Acosta and Riley Molman in my other two chaser spots. So that's going to be a very interesting matchup for me, I think. I hope that Riley can continue his dominance from last week. I heavily considered taking him in my lineup that week, and I didn't, and I don't know why I didn't do it. I don't think I can make it work with gender role, but um, definitely excited to see Riley and excited to see Andrew come out for his first series of the year. Hopefully, he can get some big numbers. Beating wise, I ended up going with Baldy and Celine. Celine was huge for me a couple weeks ago when they played. Very excited to have them back on my lineup. And Baldy, I gotta take Baldy. I have to. I have to put Baldy up there. Seeking wise, I was struggling a little with this one, but I ended up going with San Antonio seeker Tara Robinson. Tara was a UTSA seeker for a really, really long time and definitely pulled out some really big catches when she was playing with them. And I'm not really sure who's going to come out seeking for San Antonio, throwing around the idea of Chris De La Fuente, maybe some other rookies who want to get some minutes in, but. I don't know. I'm gonna take a chance on Tara, and the reason why I'm doing that is so I can put Austin Cruz in my wild card. Hopefully, I can get both of his chaser points and his seeker points that way. So we'll see what happens. That's what my lineup's looking like, and hopefully, I'm gonna crack the top 10 this week as well.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about this before the episode started, particularly about who are we going to go for our seekers, and I think that's probably the hardest this weekend because I'm not really sure what's happening over at Cleveland, not really sure what's happening over at Houston, so we're down to two teams, so like it's tough. But starting off with my chasers, basically it looks the same. David, Izzy, Riley also were in my three. But instead of Andrew, I went with Alyssa Viaba. I think Alyssa's going to get some good run this weekend, particularly on fast breaks. You saw it a lot during MLQ champs about Alyssa leaking out early, catching easy goals there, and I think those would be a lot available. Those are going to be available for San Antonio this weekend if Houston decides not to settle down in the half court, which they did against KC. So I think Alyssa's going to get really great use this week and have a really great stat line. Beaters, same there. Celine and Baltimore Nunez, I think probably the two best beaters that are being rostered this weekend that are going to get dodgeballs home, get some good stops in. And so I'm excited to see both of them play this weekend. For my seeker, I'm actually going to go Austin. The reason because I think Austin and Tony are probably the two seekers for Charlotte that's going to happen this weekend. I think Austin went out there and caught twice against us, and I think Austin is first up for seeking priority. And so, depending on who their seeker is up in Charlotte, I think Austin might get the catch, and hopefully gets me three catches on the weekend, which leaves my wild card as to who's going to be seeking for San Antonio. I genuinely don't know. I don't know. I don't. I wish I was at the coaching clipboard so I could get some inside information and then give it to the people, or maybe keep it to myself. I have no idea. But Chris did get a catch at MLQ champs. Chris was out there in crunch time to get some catches. Maybe Chris gets some run, gets a nice little catch off, and can get some points here for me there. But if not, I'll just take them getting some beating points as well, and I'll be happy with that too. But hopefully, I can get a catch or two there with Chris as well. So that's my lineup. I already submitted it. You can go check it online. We're getting back in the top 10.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. The thing about Chris as a seeker is that's one of your senior beaters. Like the Soldados, they lost Daniel Williams and, they've gained a lot of really good college players. Soham Sharma from Illini,
Yeah.
huge addition. Also Sam Regardia, Texas State. But it's like, especially against playing Houston, you have the advantage with these older, more experienced beaters who have been around, who have won a ring, all of those, like Baldy just won a ring with Heat too. Like that's another thing. And do you pull out Chris to go seek, or do you keep him in the beater game and, combat Houston, who's going to be focusing on, the chaser game? What do you do? I don't know. We're gonna see. We're gonna see on Saturday. But next week we're gonna recap week 4, which is Cleveland versus Charlotte and Houston versus San Antonio. And we're also gonna preview our next games. I don't actually have the schedule up in front of me right now, but
Um,
I think
I
it's Boston and New York, and then Chicago and Toronto on Saturday, June 11th. So keep
yep.
your eye out for those games. Those are gonna be some big games. Really excited to see Boston and New York. And obviously we're gonna see Toronto for the first time. That's gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
But
Turn this up, turn this up. I'm excited to see Toronto too. There's actually going to be an exhibition match between Detroit and Toronto this Sunday, and so Toronto will get their first look at some MLQ action this Sunday against the exhibition against Detroit, and so that'll also probably be streamed on the MLQ network, and so you'll be able to get a little glimpse of view because hey, maybe Toronto upsets Chicago. You'll have to see. You'll have to see.
that would be something, wouldn't it?
But
That
feel
would be
free to
something.
comment. If you have any special call ball events, stuff that you want us to cover, we love interacting with people. We're about to bring some people on the show. We're about to talk a lot of crap soon. We want to hear it. Storylines,
Genuinely.
controversies, the whole nine. Also follow us on Instagram at FBN_quadball. Like, subscribe, share, turn on post notifications, hit that bell icon, and make sure to also read all of our previews that are also coming out for the entire MLQ season. We'll see you later.
See you guys next week.